Hey Merfolk fans, I'm Joe. Thanks for joining me. I'm here with a replay of round 2 of a Modern Friendly League. The opponent won the die roll, so I'll be on the draw. Looking at the opening hand, it's an easy keep for me. Being on the draw, I'm going to have plenty of opportunities to draw into land by the second turn when we'll want to start casting Silvergill Adept. So yeah, easy keep on my side. Looks like the opponent kept 7 as well. So Celestial Colonnade, probably Jeskai control, and I hit a land on my first draw step, so it just makes the hand a little bit better. Instead of Wanderwine Hub revealing a Merfolk, we can open with Island for AEther Vial, keeping all the contents of our hands a secret. So AEther Vial is really useful against control decks because we can wait till their end step to activate the AEther Vial, making it harder for them to interact with us on our turn. If you just activate your AEther Vial and put like a Lord on to push a couple more damage, if they've got mana up, they'll just go ahead and path to exile your Lord right then and there. If they want to prevent damage without you doing that, they might have to path Silvergill Adept or a Harbinger of the Tides. So you always want to save AEther Vial for their end step. It makes it pretty difficult for them to navigate the game effectively. So we see an untapped Steam Vents already starting the clock, getting them down to 18. They pass the turn. Of course, AEther Vial will get 1 counter. And with 2 mana up, there's no reason I can see to play out Silvergill Adept into like a mana leak or even a remand. We've got AEther Vial. We've got plenty of creatures. We can just sit back. We'll lose a turn of tempo potentially, but we're just going to make it more difficult for the opponent to use their mana correctly. So again, not revealing anything, I think. I'll probably want to play the Mutavault, and then just pass the turn. Slow and steady wins the race against Jeskai control, especially when you've got a lot of gas in AEther Vial. Mutavault is a clock by itself too. Okay, so it's possible the opponent was leaving up mana for Think Twice and doesn't have a counterspell, but it's more likely that they also have a counterspell in hand. So they get to cycle Think Twice. Not a big deal. So Scalding Tarn for the 3rd land represents a flashback of Think Twice. Nothing super powerful, but they could again also have counter spells and removal. So I drew another Master of Waves for the turn, which is great because in the late game, especially with AEther Vial being uncounterable, Master of Waves can just close out the last few points of damage. So I'm going to choose to activate Mutavault here. If the opponent has a path, we'll just replace it with an island. It's not a big deal. We have AEther Vial, so the lands are not super duper important right now, I guess, and this at least will show us a little bit of what he's working with. I decided before going to attacks, however, to play out Wanderwine Hub. Depending on what the opponent does against Mutavault, I could always Vapor Snag it back to my hand if I think that that's important. Vapor Snag, not likely to catch something on the opponent's side. We typically don't want to bounce like a Snapcaster Mage or a Vendilion Click because it gets so much value when it enters the battlefield. So I chose to reveal the Silvergill, which I'm just going to Vial in anyway. So now we can go to attacks. I've got Vapor Snag up. Let's see what the opponent has for Mutavault. Also, it's kind of like a, what do you call it, like a canary in the mine or whatever? No, what is it? I don't know. It's just, I'm testing to see, what he's got. If he had a bolt, why not play the bolt, right? But it looks like he doesn't have anything. And it's totally possible that he's leveling me and he just wants me to think he doesn't have a bolt, so that when I play out a Lord, he's going to kill it. He might not care about 2 damage right now. There's a lot of mind games that go on in control matchups. We're going to get to end step our AEther Vial, like I was mentioning. So, okay, it looks like he's just going to flashback the thing twice here. So opponent on 7 cards at the beginning of his turn, going up to 8 after the draw step. Plays a Flooded Strand, so he's cruised all the way up to Cryptic mana. Mutavault, a good way to play around Cryptic, but the opponent's still at 15, so we're going to have to start putting a few of these creatures onto the battlefield. So on the end step, can activate and put in a Silvergill Adept. drawing into a Master of the Pearl Trident. So I was totally ready to take up my AEther Vial on my upkeep, but there's no rush, right? The opponent is not killing us anytime soon. Once we go past 2 counters, there's no going back. So just keep it on 2 for a little while. Really valuable to have an Island Walk Lord, and if the opponent taps out for like a Supreme Verdict, we can just activate AEther Vial on their end step and come back with more bodies. So wise to not activate the AEther Vial here. So we'll go to my draw step. Spreading Seas is okay. We might try to lure out a counterspell by playing Spreading Seas. But first let's go to attacks and see if he wants to use Cryptic to do anything. Swing with Silvergill. No plays, so opponent already down to 13. Control matchups like this are really just about poking, like leaning, applying a tiny bit of pressure, little by little. Jeskai control, I think, plays some number of Sphinx's Revelations, and of course those can they can hurt us. But if we've got a lot of gas in our hand and we can sort of keep parity with cards, Sphinx's Revelation makes that difficult if they draw it. But yeah, just a little pressure at a time. Don't overextend. Keep AEther Vial up for their end step. Make it difficult for them. So I'm going to go ahead and try to play the Spreading Seas here on the Colonnade, taking them off their manland. If they don't like that, maybe they'll waste one of their counter spells. So the opponent cracked and got a basic Plains, it looks like. And okay, so Cryptic Command. What are the modes? Counter target spell, draw a card. If I was him, I might have bounced the AEther Vial, but I could have just replayed it, so I don't know. There's some kind of glitch with Cryptic Command and also Lightning Helix where it's got a red full frame border. I think it's pretty beautiful, actually. It's kind of cool looking. So yeah, I got my Spreading Seas countered by Cryptic Command. Seems a bit of a waste, potentially indicating that he has a Snapcaster Mage in hand to get more value out of that Cryptic Command later. Okay, so maybe he just drew that Colonnade. Yeah, so now he's got 2 Colonnades. Could have let the first one get Spreading Seeds, saved his Cryptic Command. So again, on the end step, I'm going to use my AEther Vial, put the Master onto the battlefield, and now I can take up AEther Vial with 2 3-drops and 2 4-drops in hand. And we'll just keep it at 3 for a little while, Drew another 2-drop, so it shows you can't go back with AEther Vial. It's pretty tricky. You have to be pretty careful, but I don't feel bad about it because I've got plenty of plays left in the AEther Vial. So it looks like here with Cryptic up again, I might just go to attacks for 5. If he taps the team, I can activate Mutavault. If he bounces the Mutavault and taps the team, it's a little early for that, but if he does it, I can just replay the Mutavault. Okay, so I just passed 2 attacks, and just chose to get in with Silvergill here. If he has a Snapcaster in hand, I don't want the Lord to eat it. And if he plays Snapcaster and then has like a Path or a Bolt in hand, even if I Vial in a Reejerey to try to get the Master to 3/3 and just stomp the Snapcaster Mage, if he has a Bolt or a Path on top of the Snapcaster, then he can deal with the Reejerey and then trade with the Master, which would be a little bit of a blowout. So just patient play again, trying to get in for 3, see if we can sneak it through. And we can. The opponent's down to less than half their starting life total. And, no plays. Keep it simple, 6 cards in hand, a lot of win conditions. Getting really close to just lethal on board. Opponent plays a Desolate Lighthouse, up to 6 mana. It's going to pass the turn to me. And end step, we're going to put a little more pressure on the table. Merrow Reejerey enters. So upkeep, I think we keep it on 3 because we've still got a Reejerey and can draw into more. Okay, hit our 4th land. That's interesting. I think here I would play the Wanderwine Hub and reveal Lord of Atlantis. AEther Vial's on 3. I don't want him to know that I have another Reejerey. I certainly don't want him to know about the Master of Waves. So let's check the revealed card zone. And yep, I revealed the Lord of Atlantis. So a lot of power on the board right now. 6 mana represents Snapcaster Cryptic to tap the team, but then I can still activate Mutavault. Our lords are getting pretty close to being outside of Lightning Bolt range, or Lightning Helix range. Opponent lets me go to attacks. So he taps 4, oh, but then he goes to 5 and 6 for Torrential Gearhulk, yes. So this is an awesome card from Kaladesh. It's seeing a ton of play in Standard. When it enters the battlefield, he can cast a target instant card from your graveyard without paying its mana cost. So he has to cast it now. It's not like Snapcaster where he can wait until the end of the turn. So the only spell in there right now is Cryptic, and he gets to do it for free. Probably bouncing the Island Walk Lord. I've still got this Vapor Snag in my hand, and while it potentially gives him extra value, if he's going to bounce my Lord and draw a card, then, okay, so he's targeting it. Let's see what modes he chooses, because we do get the benefit of that information. He wants to return my Island Walk Lord and draw a card, just like I said. So if we Vapor Snag his Torrential Gearhulk, he goes down to 8. Bring in a Merrow Reejerey, he's going to still be taking 7 off of these guys, and he'll go down to 1, at which point we should just be able to lean for a while and just keep applying pressure. I like the opponent going down to 1. So with that in mind, he has no other spells in the graveyard after exiling this Cryptic command. So Vapor Snag the Gearhulk, activate AEther Vial, bring in the Reejerey. Island Walk Lord goes back to my hand. My hand is pretty insane. And the opponent's going to take 7, like I said. My second Vapor Snag, if I draw it, becomes lethal as well. It's going to be hard for him to Sphinx's Revelation out of this much damage. He does have 8 cards in hand. So just passing through his turn makes it look like he's got Cryptic, but he might have made a misstep there, passing through to his cleanup, because he now has to discard. Discarded Logic Knot. That might have been strategic, because if he has a Snapcaster, he can use the Logic Knot anyway. So I think it's time to put the AEther Vial up to 4, since we have 2 Masters of Waves and no more Reejereys in the hand. So we keep drawing gas, and I'm feeling pretty good about my position at this point. Just going to pass, I think, to go... Well, let's see here. Going to cast the Silvergill Adept, just because I've got it in hand and I want the value of the Reejerey triggers. Even if the Silvergill gets countered, we get some triggers with Reejerey and can try to tap, I think, the Colonnades. We don't want any blocks. We don't have access to Island Walk right now. So opponent floats 2 blue mana. This is tricky. I want to show you guys this if I still can. If the opponent taps a target in response to being targeted by Merrow Reejerey, MTGO asks you if you want to use his ability to untap it. Normally, we might just click yes, but you definitely want to click no. You don't want to untap the opponent's land. So be very careful about that. So it looks like the Silvergill actually got to resolve. Drew into a Harbinger, and at this point, with the opponent at 1, we can pass the go to attacks. Looks like the opponent is going to tap my creatures and draw a card. So that resolves, and I'm going to activate Mutavault. Swing with this guy. No Island Walk, but he's a 4/4. Opponent's got something. Snapcaster Mage for chumps. Alright, so he gets more time. We see that he has another Cryptic command in the graveyard if he wants to recast that Torrential Gearhulk now. So we're going to have at least another turn, another cycle of tapping my team. He didn't counter the Silvergill though, so it's possible I should just run out an Island Walk Lord to make it more difficult for him to block. Well, this doesn't look good. Supreme Verdict wipes away the board. Opponent's still at 1, and we've got end step Master of Waves multiple times. So on the opponent's end step, just bring in a Master of Waves. Only has 1 token, but both of them are lethal. Keep AEther Vial on 4. Drew an Island Walk Lord. Might as well play one of these guys, make blocks more difficult. Pass the go to attacks. And man, it looks like the opponent has another Cryptic Command just naturally in hand. He's already exiled one, there's another in the graveyard, so this is the third that he's naturally drawn. So unfortunately, I think I already played a land this turn. I think he's bouncing the Mutavault and tapping my team. At least he's not drawing a card. Oh, okay, so I didn't play a land that turn, so good. I can play back out the Mutavault. Still have like super overkill lethal for, you know, a couple consecutive turns here. Opponent plays a Sacred Foundry. Just passing the turn. We know he has the Torrential Gearhulk, representing, you know, Cryptic Flashback. No need to bring in Master of Waves yet. We drew a land. And very silly, very hasty, I put it into play. It's such a stupid move because the whole game I was aware of the Cryptic Flashback and the bouncing of Mutavault, who is a lethal threat by himself through Cryptic Command. So just a misstep there. Gonna pass to go to attacks. Think we're gonna see the Gearhulk here. So there he is. Cryptic Command. I think we know the modes. Tap them and return Mutavault. Yes. That's what I expected. So unfortunately, I can't play out the Mutavault again. It's kind of a pain in the butt. So he exiled one of the Cryptics and still has one in the graveyard. Seen a lot of Cryptic Command action. Snapcaster Mage for Supreme Verdict. Okay. But this taps the opponent pretty low. It's going to attack for 5 and then probably wipe the board. You know, he knows what cards he has in his hand, and so potentially this is the right play, but it taps him lower than Cryptic mana. So I have end step Master of Waves. Oh, but he has a 4th land, so we'll see how it goes. Okay, so end step Master of Waves. And the opponent just scooped. I guess he had no more answers at that point. So that's pretty much how you play against these decks. We didn't run out our earliest creatures into counter magic because we had AEther Vial to get them in and get value around counter spells. Then, you know, just slowly activating, slowly ticking up AEther Vial. Ton of value out of all the creatures in our hands. Mutavault threatening to get around Cryptic Command all the time, forcing the opponent to not be able to cycle Cryptic Command, but instead tap the team and bounce Mutavault. In those situations, especially with the opponent at 1 or 2 life, be very, very careful not to play out a land so that you can replay Mutavault. So that was game 1. Let's go ahead and see how game 2 went. I'll drink a little bit of water here. Opponent's going to be on the play. I think he was on the play last game. So opponent chose to keep, and with these counters, now this is a really interesting example here of an opening hand that might be tricky to decide whether to mulligan or not. These counterspells are so valuable in this matchup. We've also got a ton of creatures to put a clock on that, for me, especially on the draw, this is a keep. We've got a Silvergill to potentially draw a card, and then, like I said, just a lot of gas for clock, and the counterspells just to prevent the clock from being reduced. So opponent kept, and I kept. Just Scalding Tarn, go. Drew a Cursecatcher. That's a turn 1 play. So we get to start chipping away with the Cursecatcher. Better than some potential draws. Didn't want to hit a Master of Waves, for example, there. Okay, opponent plays Glacial Fortress and probably just going to pass. AEther Vial is sensational. Very, very good draw. Just going to go to attacks here. Like I said, start poking in with Cursecatcher. Between the fetch land and Cursecatcher, opponent's already down to 18. Okay, follow up second main with AEther Vial. If the opponent has like a Mana Leak or Remand, we would just sacrifice the Cursecatcher. Again, showing the value of Cursecatcher. Guys, if you're not running this guy, instead running, you know, some other 1-drops, he does so much work. Like, we're not going to see him get sacked right now because the opponent is, I guess, smart enough not to play a Remand into a Cursecatcher or a Mana Leak. But they don't do it because we've got Cursecatcher on the table. So now AEther Vial is going to just be excellent. We can just get our creatures onto the table while leaving up mana for Dispel and Negate. Island go, not very exciting. Upkeep, of course, Aether Vial gets a counter, and there's our land. Very nice. So maybe some of you would play out Silvergill Adept here, but I don't think that I would do that just because we've got Aether Vial guaranteeing that card draw next turn. Instead, I'm going to crack in with Silvergill Adept. This guy is getting a lot of value so far this game. And it looks like the opponent is using a Path to Exile on Cursecatcher, which is a huge win for us. I mean, I could choose to use one of my counterspells here, but I want lands, and I also want the opponent to waste his removal on my 1-drops. So I have to say, the Path pretty strongly represents that he has a Snapcaster in hand to grab that Path to Exile again. But still, you have to save the Path to Exile for a bigger threat than the Cursecatcher. It's possible the opponent also really wants to cast a Cryptic Command next turn, in which case the Cursecatcher would slow it down. But come on, you're ramping me. You're spending removal on a 1-drop. It just seems super inefficient. So as I mentioned, not going to try to cast Silvergill Adept here. Tap Celestial Colonnade. Doesn't have Cryptic anyway. So land and go. I'm going to untap and put my Aether Vial up to 2. Now, drawing a land for the turn, especially a Mutavault, which plays around Supreme Verdict beautifully, we don't have to play Silvergill. We don't have to activate Aether Vial on our turn. If we do so, he can use his mana really efficiently and just bolt him right now. By waiting until their turn, we just make them waste some potential mana. So we try to maintain as much tempo as we can. Going to activate Mutavault here and try to get in for some attacks. Looks like he's going for Lightning Helix here. And now, you see actually this one has a blue border. I really love this. It's obviously a mistake, but I think it's like the red and the blue look really cool together. So I have 2 choices here. I can use Negate or Dispel. Now, typically you want to use the more narrow counterspell, leaving Negate back to hit something like a Planeswalker. But in the case of Jeskai Control, I think they literally don't play any non-creatures. I mean, they basically they don't play any sorceries that we can counter. They don't play any Planeswalkers. At least I think stock lists don't. There might be some rogue Elspeths here and there. But with the mana up here, I think it might have been better to use the Negate. It's easier to leave up Dispel, and anything I'm going to be countering in this matchup can be hit by either spell, basically. I did go with Dispel, though, choosing to leave back the the broader counterspell, the more powerful counterspell. Certainly don't want the opponent to gain life, and don't want to lose a Mutavault if we can avoid it. So we keep our clock ticking. Opponent goes down to 16. Plays a land and passes the turn. End step, as I mentioned, we get to put in Silvergill Adept, maintain card advantage. At this point, we're actually way out ahead in cards against the opponent. We've got 6, they've got 4. And we drew another land. Another Mutavault, actually, I should say, is just a really great creature to draw in this matchup. So I kept the Aether Vial on 2 since I'm going to want to be able to get this Island Walk Lord onto the table. If possible, we want to leave Negate up. So I'm just going to activate 1 Mutavault and go 2 attacks here. Let's see if the opponent wants to tap us down. Looks like he doesn't. Okay, so we're seeing Electrolyze on the Silvergill. He's actually putting both points of damage onto the Silvergill. So sequencing here isn't super important, but I'm going to put the Lord out first. It wouldn't save the Silvergill, but all the stuff is still on the stack, so I'm going to negate this now. So both of my creatures are bigger at this point. Opponent's tapped a little bit lower after Electrolyze. And yeah, it looks like he doesn't have anything he can do with these 2 mana here. So tied on cards, I've got Aether Vial, 2 more Lords in hand, 3 Mutavaults, and 2 Merfolk on the table. So navigating very carefully, been able to leverage an advantage every turn. Opponent now has 6 mana. And he's going to cast Supreme Verdict just to wipe 2 Merfolk. We've still got 6 power spread across 3 Mutavaults. So, kills my 2 creatures, and then passes the turn. We are going to take AEther Vial up here. We want to be able to get those Reejereys in. So with the opponent on 10, let's see, activate 2 Mutavaults, swing, and we will push 2 extra points of damage here. So the opponent's at 4 and dead to 2 Mutavaults next turn. Scalding Tarn, opponent with 2 cards in hand, now has mana to activate Celestial Colonnade. Well, I guess he had it last turn, but he played Supreme Verdict, so that wasn't an issue last turn. But now he is passing the turn with 7 mana up. AEther Vial, of course, is going to stay on 3. We've got another Lord in hand. And we drew another land, so we can activate all of our Mutavaults this turn. But I think before passing to go to attacks, I'm going to activate 1 Mutavault. If the opponent wants to tap our team, I can then activate 2 more Mutavaults for lethal post-Cryptic Command. So let's get 1 Mutavault up there and pass to go to attacks. Opponent lets it happen, and we are just going to swing here for what should be lethal, hopefully. Only 2 cards in the opponent's hand. We see a Snapcaster going for, I believe, Lightning Helix to gain a little bit of life. Looks like he's... Alright, so he took care of the Reejerey and then is trying to block and kill the Mutavault, but I'd really rather save that Mutavault if possible. So, the opponent's on 1 card, so we shouldn't be playing around too much at this point. We've successfully maneuvered them down to where we have card advantage and board advantage. So, Snapcaster bites the dust, Mutavault gets to live another day. And we're still, the opponent cracked a fetch land, going down to 6. Not sure if that was super necessary right away. Draw a card. Let's see. Don't play a land in their first main. Don't play a land in their second main. So 2 cards up. I'm going to bring in a Harbinger here just to present extra bodies. If the opponent's got spot removal, I'm going to try to tap his Celestial Colonnade also with a Reejerey. That way he has no blocks, at least no blocks on board. In response, we'll see a Spell Snare. That Harbinger wasn't super necessary, and Spell Snare, you know, leaves him again with 1 card in hand. So we, again, I didn't want to untap his Celestial Colonnade. It gave me the option, but Magic Online is not going to trick me today. Now we can take AEther Vial up to 4. We've already seen at least 2 Reejereys. We might start seeing Master of Waves. But instead it's a Lord of Atlantis. We can go ahead and cast that guy. It makes blocks that much harder for the opponent. Tap another one of their lands. I see white mana. We do not want to untap this, so we say no. Looks like my Lord got to resolve. And I'm not going to play around Cryptic, I think, this turn. Actually, we have the, let's see. We have the luxury of doing so, I think. So, no, I think I just went all out here. If he has blocks or Snapcaster Bolt or Snapcaster Lightning Helix, we just want to do our best to close it here, I think. When they get down to 1 card, you shouldn't be playing around every single possibility. Unless there's one that could just totally blow you out, but I'm still at 20 life with 3 Mutavaults. The opponent's tapping a bunch of stuff. Alright, okay, so we see a Sphinx's Revelation. So he gained, he gained 2 life and drew 2 cards. He left 1 mana up in case he drew like a Lightning Bolt, I guess, or Vapor Snag. But this deck doesn't play Vapor Snag. But then he just scooped it up. So I think this was a really solid match against Jeskai Control. I think that I navigated it kind of exactly how Merfolk wants to do it. Let me know your guys' thoughts, if you would have done anything differently. We were fortunate enough to draw Mutavaults both games. But I think the key is to play slowly. Be aware of how many cards the opponent has in hand. Be generally aware of what options they have in the graveyard. I did bring in 2 Relic of Progenitus. We didn't draw any of them, but as it turned out, we didn't need any of them. Be prepared to keep opening hands on the draw that have only 1 land, but counter spells, things that are going to be really valuable in the late game. Okay, so that's it. Please tune in for the next round. It'll be round 3. I'm currently sitting at 2-0 after beating Scapeshift and now Jeskai Control. So I'll see you guys there. Thank you.